We can't tell you how frustrating it was for us to upload our podcast when we first got started. The websites were clunky, we had data limits, and it was all so confusing. That is until we found Zencastr. Zencastr is an online platform built for podcasters to not only upload their podcast, but track their listeners, connect to their audience, and so much more. Zencastr's plans have no upload or download limits, so your costs won't grow as you do. Embed their player that automatically updates to show the latest episodes of your show. Zencastr lets you see your podcast downloads along with your web traffic in Google Analytics. Zencastr also supports multiple podcasts under one account. The best part is, if you already have a podcast on another platform, you can switch to Zencastr with a one-click importer, all free of charge. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to howtomakeapodcast.co/Zencastr to start saving time and money with your podcast today. Hello and welcome to How to Make a Podcast. My name is John Bunn. I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Miller. Nick, what's new in your world? How are you doing? We are here. The podcast about podcasting has launched. What's new in your world?
Man, it's so exciting. I'm doing really good. This is a part of the first 4 episodes or so are a part of launch day. So you get like a jam-packed special edition of 4-pack in one on launch day. Whatever. Anyway, so I'm doing really good to have this podcast be live, and so people can listen to it and learn, and be on their way to making money creating a podcast. It's kind of a cool idea, and we've been able to do it, and we're just sharing that with you. So I'm good.
Yeah, man, it's pretty neat to see the interaction in our Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, just search How to Make a Podcast on Facebook.
Dude,
it is.
I made howtomakeapodcast.co/Facebook. Go there, take you to the group.
Well, that's even easier. See, what Nick does, he does all the hard work. I just talk, and that's fine. And but anyway, check out the Facebook group with the link that Nick said that I'll memorize over the next few episodes. But it's one of these things where we've been talking about this and dreaming about this for so long, and now it's here. And, it's just unreal to think about where it's come from and where it is today. And like 18 months ago, we were like, should we be podcasting? And now it's like our main source of income, and we have this freedom to do things we never thought we could do. And so, the first few episodes, we started talking about how we, got going, how we've monetized. In the last episode, we talked about sponsors and just that you should get them. And we wanted to go a little deeper in this episode about sponsors and just talking about kind of what we charge, should you have contracts, and kind of just dive a little bit deeper into that. Am I missing anything, Nick? Is that about it?
No, I think that's really, really good. And whenever you're talking about charging a sponsor, what should you charge? How much should you charge your sponsors? You're going to find lots of information out there. And one thing that a lot of people use is kind of this standard, downloads per dollars kind of thing. So let's say for every 1,000 downloads, we get $15 to our account, which is great for a podcast that has hundreds of thousands or millions of downloads, a month or something like that. People that we listen to, like Jenna Kutcher, that's a good deal for her because she has so many downloads. But for someone like us, where we're averaging, 10 to 20,000 downloads a month, $150, for those 10,000 downloads, that's not something that we really want to, buy into. It's great for the advertiser. It's not great for us. And so I think you need to open up your mind just a little bit whenever it comes to getting these sponsorships and what to charge, and maybe look for different avenues and think a little bit differently about it. Because when it comes to the industry standard of what you quote unquote should charge for a podcast, John and I are kind of pushing against that just a little bit.
Yeah, and when you think about it, we talk about it a lot, but if you have a pure audience, especially, if you've built this, you haven't bought followers, you haven't just had people download to download, but you have loyal followers. We say this it's so much better to have, 10 people that are bought in than 10,000 people that aren't bought in. And so when you have this pure audience, yes, there are standards for big radio shows or television shows, you know, the CPM or whatever that is. You know, that's great. And like what Nick is saying, there is more value most likely in a podcast of 5,000 people that is pure than the average going rate for, you know, a radio ad or things like that. So we want to kind of break down and get even further into that when it comes to the going rate and all that good stuff. And for us, I mean, we have blown that out of the water, you know, the $10, $15 per thousand, you know, whereas it sits today right around like $10,000 range for 4 different sponsors, you know, average of somewhere around $2,500 a month that they're paying us to run ads on, you know, on our show, and it's worth it for them and they're excited and happy to do it. And if you think about $2,500 for 10,000 downloads, that's, you know, a huge amount of money per download, but they're seeing incredible results because of that purity in there. So
Yeah. So the thing that we really stress about is you finding the right company and then selling the value that you bring. Okay. So you need to do your homework. You need to do some research. You need to figure out who are the companies that you want to be selling to. Okay. And what you really need to do whenever you want to start selling, whenever you're going after sponsors, is you need to know your worth before you start selling. Okay. If you just, you know, go willy nilly and someone's like, hey, I'm super interested in, you know, sponsoring your podcast. You know, I think your brands will kind of align to like, what do you charge? What does that look like? What are you offering me? Those kind of things. And if you don't know, or you're not confident, okay, then it's probably going to fall apart. If you're on the phone with someone and they say, what is a 1 month sponsorship going to cost me? And you're like, oh, $500? And like, that's kind of how you talk. Okay. Then they're either going to say, okay, because that's, you know, cheap in their mind, or they're going to walk away because you are not confident in it. Okay. Remember that the dollar amount is set by you. You are the one that is setting that amount, and then you are telling them that. So you just need to be confident and know what your value is and know what your worth is.
When we got going with sponsors, and we've mentioned this, but like it was a good 30 or 40 episodes in. I'll have to look back on ours just before we really started doing this. And we talked about building a relationship with the potential sponsors and not just trying to, you know, sell them at the beginning. And we had this relationship. And there are a lot of different press kits and different things out there, but I just kind of built out and wrote down, and I knew all of our statistics. I knew how many downloads we were getting. I knew how many people were in our Facebook group. I knew our Instagram following. And so by having all that knowledge, all those numbers, that is a great starting point for you to start building, you know, what you can charge. And like Nick is saying, if you're not confident, you're going to come across as, you know, somebody that they're probably not wanting to work with. And this is something that over time and doing sales long enough that when we got to this point with our first sponsor, I wrote up all the statistics in kind of like a here's how we're growing and showing how the growth was happening and saying, ooh, in the first month we did, you know, 1,000 downloads and now we're at 7,000 downloads and every, you know, episode that you're on is going to live on forever, and like really building this up. But I put all these statistics together, and then instead of just saying, what do you want to pay us for that? Nick and I had a conversation, and we said, we're really happy to, like, we need sponsors. It adds credibility. And so we put together a couple different package options for people to really show them the value. People love packages. People love being able to compare prices. And so we put together different options that just had an ad at the beginning of the episode only, or an ad in the episode plus a logo in our Facebook group, plus, you know, shout outs to our newsletter. Like there was a lot of different things. And so building a package that you can then sell them also adds more value, because you're not just doing an ad only on your show. Like that's not what a sponsor is. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, I've got sponsors, that means people run ads on my show. But you know, today we have sponsors that we're pushing them in our Facebook group. We are pushing them in our newsletter. We're pushing them on Instagram, on just the Facebook page. We're starting conversations within the Facebook group about their brands. We're always shouting them out. And so building that package with them and knowing, like that'll help you to know kind of where you sit. And so I think we had like a $500, $1,000, $1,500 like option, stuff like that, just so they could say, okay, we would start with this one. And so having those packages is something that we definitely recommend for you in your podcast.
One thing that John actually did whenever he kind of built these packages is he actually line itemed all of the different things out and what those would cost individually. So it's like, a pre-roll ad is going to cost you $500 an episode, and a logo in our banner in our Facebook group is going to cost you $250 a month. And having a URL, howtofilmweddings.com/yourbusiness with our wedding video podcast, that's going to cost you $350 a month, and just kind of line item those out. And then budget or bundle those things together, what he is talking about, so that they can see, if I got all of these individually, it's going to cost me $1,000 a month. But if I bundle them together, it's going to cost me $750. Okay, doing stuff like that can really help you. And then again, be confident in what you're saying. And one thing that we did whenever we first got our sponsor, and we'll kind of break down what we did for this very first one, was we kind of did like a 3-month, a 90-day trial run with that to reassure them. Now, when we say trial run, we don't mean free. Okay, they paid for it, but it was kind of set up, hey, let's take package B that costs $1,000, okay? And then we'll give it to you at a discounted rate of $750 for 3 months. So $750 a month for 3 months. And then let's reevaluate after that 3 month so that you guys can know if this is worth it or not. Okay, so you're kind of giving them a deal, but if you treat them well and you treat them right, then you could have a long-term investment, a long-term sponsor for your podcast, which for us, we're talking about MusicBed here. For our other podcast, that's what that has turned into. They were our first sponsor, and they are currently, at the time of recording this, still with us sponsoring our show. And so that is something that we did that we would recommend. So John, do you want me to just kind of go through real quick and kind of break down, or do you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to add one thing here. So you were talking about like me bundling these things together, and I do think that that's really important for you as you're building packages for your sponsors, is showing value in every single thing that you can be showing value in. So people love feeling like they're getting something free or an add-on or a bonus. And so if you're like, hey, just running these ads cost X amount of dollars once an episode. If you do this package though, you're going to basically get the ads plus this for free. You're going to get this bonus. And like, people love just feeling the power of the word free, like add-on, bonus, those kinds of things in your packages are so big. And then as Nick was saying, you have to be thinking longer term than I need the money right now. Luckily, in our business, with How to Film Weddings, we decided we're not going to expect any money for 24 months, and that was our, like, it's okay if we don't make money, and it helps you make decisions a little bit better. It makes decisions that are long-term instead of short-term. And so if you don't have a sponsor and you're going after your first sponsor, what is the value of that actual sponsor to you? Are you, by having a sponsor, going to attract other people that were interested in sponsors? And so it like that relationship that Nick was talking about, like that 90-day trial run. And we didn't tell them, hey, this is a trial run, but like we just wanted to get them in the door and blow them away and say, for 90 days, it's going to take, 90 days just to get the word out to people that you exist, that we're sponsoring you. And then after about 90 days, we can kind of make more decisions. And at that point for us, we had done so much more work, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that was when we, at that point, had now 6 or 7 months of a relationship with this company. They saw that we were the real deal, and then they continued. We could have charged them $1,000 or $1,500 a month. They probably would have paid it, but then they wouldn't have seen the investment. It wouldn't have been as good of a return on the investment yet because we were still growing, and they probably would have bounced. So we would have made like $3,000 up front. But now we've made tens of thousands of dollars from them because we've built this out over time. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, love that. Thank you for sharing that information. So one of the things that I just wanted to break down what we included, and as you're thinking about building a press kit and what these line items can cost, just think outside of the box. Think of everything that you could put a dollar amount on and include that. Okay, we are pushers of you having a Facebook group for your podcast. This is going to be one of the big reasons why you should have a Facebook group for your podcast, so that you can take that picture at the top, that bar, the cover photo, and advertise on it. Okay, so we started this out and we gave them a little bit of a deal, which was $750 a month for 4 episodes. Okay, and we agreed to 3 months of doing this, and at the time we were getting about 4 to 5, somewhere in there, 1,000 downloads a month. Okay, and for MusicBed, and what they got with that was a 30-second pre-roll ad before every single episode. So as our episode starts, they get this ad, they get a custom URL on our website where we can push people to, and then they get their logo in our header image. And anytime, we're talking about music licensing in our Facebook group or people ask questions, we are going to share MusicBed. They nicely also gave us an affiliate link. So whenever someone would sign up for their service, we would also get a little bit, it's not very much, their affiliate link, but we would get a little bit of kickback from that. So again, it was kind of like a 3-month trial run. We kind of said, hey, let's do this for 3 months and then evaluate. And from there, they are now paying us $1,500 a month. So we have doubled their initial investment. Okay, we have moved their ad from the middle, or from the beginning to the middle, to kind of make up for that, the price that we're charging for other sponsors that we have this affiliate link, but we have a relationship with them. Okay, so we wanted to give them more value than maybe we were getting. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Did I say that right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so we knew that having one sponsor would really open the door and give us legitimate proof, that we were a podcast that other people might want to sponsor our show as well. So, getting that first one is really, it really gets the ball rolling and really can help you start pushing that, down the hill. So more people will want to jump on and more people will want to sponsor you. So before we go to break, do you have anything that you want to add?
The only thing I would add in there is that the press kit, we'll go into further detail about that in more episodes about like building one of those out. I will say we include our press kit inside of our podcast blueprint course. That's podcastblueprint.co. And we go into more detail on all of this, a little bit deeper dive. So if you haven't checked that out yet, be sure to do that. But other than that, I think we can, after the break, we'll jump into talking about kind of how we over-delivered what we did. So we will be back right after this.
So you've got everything you need for your podcast. You've recorded your audio and video. You're so excited, but wait, you don't know how to master the audio or edit the video of your podcast. We know someone who can help. The podcast editors. Picture this. You record both audio and video for your podcast. You upload it to your remote editor, and a few days later, your podcast is ready for you to upload and push to the world. What will you do with your extra time? Connect with sponsors? Grow your Facebook group? Start that project or even course you have dreamed of for months? The possibilities are endless. We are blown away by the podcast editors and love working with them and using their services. They can edit audio, video, or both for your podcast. Don't get stuck trying to do this on your own. Get in touch with the podcast editors today. If you'd like to save 50% off of your first project, head over to howtomakeapodcast.co/thepodcasteditors.
If you have a pulse, you probably hate the subject of taxes and running the bookkeeping portion of your business. But like it or not, if you want to be a successful podcaster, you are going to have to pay attention to your numbers. But don't worry, we have the answer for you, Core Financial. Our friends over at Core Financial have taken the pressure off of us so we can focus on what we love doing most, running our podcast. They take care of all of our taxes, monthly bookkeeping, financial plans, and make sure we take full advantage of all of the tax benefits we qualify for. It just feels good knowing we aren't going to get a big surprise during tax season. If you are serious about building a business with your podcast, head on over to howtomakeapodcast.co/core to see what they can do for you. All right, we are back from break, and we're going to start this segment by asking the question of the day presented by Honeybook. Head on over to howtomakeapodcast.co/honeybook to check out our CRM of choice. This is where we have all of our contracts, all of our questionnaires. We keep everything organized for our entire podcast. Nick, the question of the day is, how do we keep our sponsors happy?
Oh, I really like this one. And in a lot of businesses and a lot of like the sales world and, that kind of stuff, you hear this phrase, which is under promise and over deliver. Okay. And what we mean by that, it helps us take care of our sponsors very, very well. So one of the things that we promised MusicBed, and this is a good example of under promising and over delivering, was we promised them a 30-second pre-show spot. So just 30 seconds of commercial. And whenever we got in there and we started recording it and we started making it, it ended up being a little bit over a minute long. Okay. And so we were giving them more bang for their buck. Also, since we have a YouTube channel and since we're doing these video podcasts as well, I made a nice little like animation and stuff. And so it was visually pleasing to people that are watching it online. Okay. And so even though I wasn't contractually obligated to do that, okay, we cared more about the relationship with our sponsor than making more money whenever we signed them. Okay, because we knew if we stuck with them for a long term, it's going to be better for both of us. And so we over delivered in that sense by giving them more than they bargained for and give them more than they asked for. Another thing that we have done is contractually, we say basically you get an ad in our Monday episodes each month of How to Film Weddings. But there have been months whenever we've had 7 episodes or we've had 9 episodes and, we do 2 a week, that kind of stuff. And we're including their ads in those episodes whenever we don't quote unquote have to, because we see the value that giving them those free ads can really add to their brand and their relationship with us. So those are just a couple of ways that we have, over-delivered to our sponsors. What do you have to add to that?
Yeah, when Nick made these commercials, these video, like we recorded all these things, we put them together, and it, ended up being a little over a minute, like he said. But what it did for us, I really want to focus in on that real quick, is like we made a big deal about we have our first sponsor. I remember us just saying, we can't believe it's real. We're getting paid. We like said this stuff on the air, and it like built this credibility with our audience. They were growing with us. And we made it a big deal. Like we had a big announcement, coming on Monday's episode. We talked about the sponsor and like we gave them all this extra value. And, if we hadn't done the things that we talked about in the previous episode, where it was building a relationship and finding a brand that we loved and, the company, the way they run their company, like all of these things flow together to get you to this point where now we have this sponsor. And now, instead of just, okay, we'll run a 30-second ad that's just kind of boring, by making something next level, it really, that made our show skyrocket. And the fact that it was like, this is a legit show. These guys aren't playing around. And we saw ourselves as a legit show before we had the proof and the numbers. And so what happened when Nick made this and we saw this commercial, it was so much easier to sell our next sponsor. Because it's like, well, I want that commercial. And we were at that point able to, say, oh, well, a video commercial, at the beginning, we usually charge, $1,500 for a commercial spot, but we'll throw that in for free if you do that. And so we're building these long-term relationships with these people. And just not just thinking about now, think about 6 months from now. Do you want to put in that extra effort to make the spot just that much better, or the animation or whatever, or hire a video person in your area to really help you bring it home if you're doing video for your podcast? That those little things, they add up. Did it make our podcast or break our podcast? No. But like all these little decisions over time, it changes everything about your podcast. And so, the question, being like, how do we take care of the sponsors? It's like we treat them how we want to be treated. We go above and beyond for them. And when you do this and you have this consistent, relationship, consistency compounds. And Nick says it all the time. And if you're consistent with them and you're consistent with the messaging to your, your listeners, and you love the product and it all works together, what happened after we started running those episodes is that people started signing up for MusicBed using, the promo code that they gave us, the affiliate link. And so they could immediately see results from us doing that. And they're still getting new people every month signing up for an $80 a month membership, and perpetuity. So like every time they sign up a new person, they're getting $800 or $900, and they're signing up 6 to 10 new people a month, some months. And it's like, it's a huge win for everyone in that case. They're getting more people, we're getting paid, we get the validity, and then the sponsors are much easier, to get. And after the first one, it was like, boom, we had like 3 like real fast. Yep. And so, yeah, that's all I have to add.
Yeah. And then as we're talking about, taking care of the sponsors really, really well, a belief that John and I have whenever it comes to how long should someone advertise with you, we found that a quarter, 3 months is kind of that sweet spot. A one-off sponsorship for just one episode, it's probably not going to get the traction. Even 1 month, unless you're doing 2 a week, which would be 8 episodes. If you're just doing once a month, I'm not sure that that's enough, because people need to hear the same messaging over and over and over and over again before they really start buying into it, or they might go actually to your website and check it out, or go use your promo code, or let them know that you sent them their way. And so we have found by doing 3-month contracts, which is, 13-ish episodes about, depending on, the quarter, sometimes more whenever we do twice a week. But anyways, you get the point. Then for 3 months, whenever people listen to our podcast, they are hearing those ads over and over again, and more likely they are going to go and sign up for those services. So what do you have to add to that?
Yeah. And one of the selling points that I always try to make sure people realize is that, like, if you try to tell them everything you know at the beginning, or show them everything you can do at the beginning in one day, it's a little bit too much. I mean, how great you're going to be for them, but like they needed to see it. And I don't understand why so many people try to sell so hard in one moment, as opposed to like letting people ease in to a relationship. This is a dip your foot in the water, slowly get used to the water, slowly, that's the kind of, if you're getting into the swimming pool that's cold, you're going to slowly warm them up over time. You do not want to dive off the diving board with people for the most part. And the more that you get them comfortable with where they're at, the further they're willing to go into the water with you. And so the longer that you do that, 3 months, like Nick is saying, that's a long time. Like that's 90 days to 100 days of time when you're looking at like the amount of episodes that are in this, and you have all this amount of time to show them and to point to them and show them that people love hearing their name, their business name. You can email them and say, look at this spot. It's so great. They're seeing it. They're able to like visceralize what is happening for their business. Hopefully they're getting business at that point. But if you say, hey, we'll do 1 week with you, that's kind of like putting a billboard up for one day, and it's like, okay, that's great. The billboard, a bunch of people saw it, but then they forgot that it existed like the next week. Instead, you may want to throw up a billboard in 6 different spots around town and leave it up for a year to really see that return on investment. And so with your podcast, like Nick is saying, the minimum someone needs to be touched by a brand is 7 times before they're willing to even like consider it typically. And so the more that you can slowly build that out for them, the better. And so, 3 months has been really great. I will say that if you need to do a little bit less long with that with your podcast, you can always test that out. Mm-hmm. But anything more than 3 months, Nick, it's interesting. It's a kind of a double-edged sword, because if you have a 6-month contract with somebody, and let's say in month 2, something happens and your podcast blows up, like in a great way. You don't have any more, like at a certain point you run out of space to run ads. Mm-hmm. You run out of, so your supply and demand goes way up. But if you've signed a 6-month contract, you're contractually obligated to stay lower with prices. Mm-hmm. You have money coming in and guaranteed for 6 months, but if you're a small new podcast, nothing more than 3 months really makes a ton of sense, because 5 months from now you might have 10 times the audience. And so,
right.
The furthest I think we've ever done, Nick, is it 3 months is the most we've ever done at this point?
Yeah, we've done all of ours actually. Everyone that has signed up to be a sponsor on our show, How to Film Weddings, has done 3-month chunks of time, which again is great because they're getting to see over time our ads and how effective they are and people signing up. But then we're also getting paid, in 3-month increments rather than just like a one-off, kind of time, to do that. So, this is, the stuff that we're recommending about sponsors and how we're going about it is going to be more than the quote unquote, industry standard, that kind of stuff. But if you find, if you have the right audience, you have the right niched audience, you have the audience that is loyal to you, and you can find these sponsors that can benefit from those audiences, I think that you can make more and charge more, per ad, for your podcast. And real quick before we end this episode, one thing that we need to dive in and touch on is contracts. Contracts for your sponsors. You want to make sure that you are covered. You want to make sure that they're covered. You want to make sure that we're all in agreement with everything. Okay. And so we recommend hiring someone to write a contract for you, a lawyer, or we actually have our friend Paige who runs a creative law shop is what she calls it. And she just has all these template contracts, and she has one for sponsors and that kind of stuff for your podcast. So we're going to link her website down below so that you can go check that out. Again, it's not the cheapest route to go and have a contract and have someone sign it, but if it can save you heartache, if it can save you time and can save you money in the long run and make you more money now, it's definitely going to be worth it to do something like that.
Exactly. And so I will say this as we're wrapping up, Nick, because we're running out of time. All of this information, this is just a portion of one of the sections inside the podcast blueprint. This is the step-by-step guide to building a profitable podcast. We're pushing it because it is so helpful to podcasters. It's everything that we did from beginning to end, the gear we use, the contracts we use, special promos and discounts for those contracts, everything, 80 plus sections. We finished working on it. It is so cool to see it come together. If you're interested in more deep knowledge, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Head on over to podcastblueprint.co. Check it out. Nick, I think we're done. Are we done? Done with this one?
I think so.
All right.
I think we're good.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you get the chance, thumbs up this video, like, subscribe, and we will see you in the next podcast.
See ya.